Nala was used to being invisible in her aunt's house. Since her mother and father had passed away, she had been forced to live with her father's elder sister, Aunt Bintu, and her cousins. But in that house, kindness was a luxury she was never given. Her cousins, Zara and Titi, always had new dresses, shiny shoes, and beautiful headscarves. Meanwhile, Nala received their old, torn clothes, rags that had lost their beauty. They never let her forget it either. This one is perfect for you, Zara snickered, tossing a faded blue dress onto Nala's lap. The fabric had holes in it, and the sleeves were uneven. It smelled of dust and sweat. Titi giggled. It matches your life, full of holes and no future. Nala clenched her teeth, but said nothing. She had learned long ago that talking back only earned her extra chores or worse, a slap from Aunt Bintu. She held the dress tightly and lowered her head. Aunt Bintu entered the room, her sharp eyes scanning Nala. That's what you'll wear to the festival, she said. Be grateful, or I'll take even that away. Before we go further, if you love stories about resilience and creativity, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss out on stories like this. Nala swallowed hard and nodded. She had no choice. The village festival was a big event where everyone wore their finest clothes. But once again, she would be the girl in rags. After her chores, Nala sat in the dimly lit room, staring at the tattered dress. Her fingers traced the torn fabric and her chest tightened. She didn't want to go to the festival looking like a beggar. But what could she do? Then an idea sparked in her mind. She rummaged through her grandmother's old sewing box, the one tucked away in the corner of the room. Inside, she found ribbons, a few safety pins, and a rusty needle with tangled thread. The sight of them made her pause. She remembered the way her grandmother used to sit by the window, stitching and mending clothes with steady hands. Nala had spent hours watching her, fascinated by the way a simple piece of fabric could be transformed with just a few careful stitches. Sometimes her grandmother had let her hold the needle, guiding her tiny hands as she practiced on scraps of cloth. Nala closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Maybe she wasn't completely helpless. Maybe those quiet lessons hadn't been for nothing. She picked up the dress and began to work. She folded the ripped edges and pinned them in place. She wove the ribbons through the fabric, creating tiny, delicate designs. She stitched the uneven sleeves so they looked intentional, like a new style. With every stitch, she felt something powerful stirring inside her. She wasn't just fixing a dress. She was carrying forward a skill, a memory, a piece of her grandmother's love. By the time she was done, the dress still looked old, but now it had something different: character, creativity, and a hint of pride. She stood before the cracked mirror, adjusting the dress on her small frame. She had turned rags into something unique. When Zara saw it, her mouth fell open. What did you do? Nala lifted her chin. I made it better. Her aunt scoffed. No matter what you do, you will always be a girl in hand-me-downs. Nala's heart pounded, but she held her head high. We'll see. The festival was alive with music and laughter. Villagers moved in colorful fabrics, their smiles wide, their voices loud. Children ran past with painted faces, and the smell of roasted meat filled the air. Nala's feet dragged as she walked behind Aunt Bintu and her cousins. People turned to stare at her dress. She could hear the whispers. Is that a costume? One girl giggled. Another smirked. She must have found that in the trash. Nala's stomach twisted. Her hands tightened into fists at her sides. She had worked so hard, and yet they still saw her as nothing. Then a voice cut through the whispers. Who made this dress? A tall man with deep brown skin and sharp eyes stepped forward. His outfit was elegant, his shoes polished. He looked important. Nala swallowed hard. I did. A slow smile spread across the man's face. Interesting. Aunt Bintu's expression darkened. Zara and Titi froze in place. And just like that, the night took a turn Nala never expected. The man circled around Nala, examining her dress. The way he looked at it wasn't with mockery, but with curiosity. He reached out, touching the fabric lightly. This is unique, he murmured. Nala swallowed, unsure of what to say. Was he mocking her too? Aunt Bintu finally found her voice. It's nothing special, just something she threw together from scraps. The man lifted an eyebrow. Scraps, you say? He turned back to Nala. Where did you learn to do this? Nala hesitated. My grandmother, she admitted. I just did what I could remember from her teachings. His eyes twinkled. You have a gift. Zara scoffed. It's just a silly little trick. She's still wearing rags. The man ignored her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of parchment. My name is Master Obi. I design clothes for some of the wealthiest people in the region. And I think you have talent. Nala's breath caught in her throat. Was this real? Was he saying the girl in rags, had something special? And Bintu crossed her arms. She's just a child. She doesn't know anything about fashion. Master Obi's smile didn't fade. She knows more than you think. He looked directly at Nala. Come see me at my shop tomorrow. I want to see more of what you can do. For the first time in her life, someone saw her. Not as a burden, not as a girl in hand-me-downs, but as something more. Nala's heart pounded as she gripped the parchment in her hand. This was her chance, but was she brave enough to take it? That night, Nala barely slept. She lay awake, staring at the parchment in her hand, tracing the name of the designer over and over. Master Obi. The way he had looked at her, with recognition, with respect, was something she had never experienced before. But what if it was a trick? What if Aunt Bintu was right, and she was just a silly girl playing with scraps? Morning came too soon. Aunt Bintu ordered her to fetch water, scrub the floors, and wash the clothes. Extra chores, as if punishing her for the attention she had received. As she worked, her mind raced. Should she go to Master Obi's shop? What if Aunt Bintu found out? Then she thought about the dress she had made, the way she had transformed something broken into something beautiful. Maybe, just maybe, she could do more. She made her decision. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Nala slipped away. Her heart pounded as she ran toward the unknown, toward the chance of something greater. Nala's legs trembled as she stood outside Master Obi's shop. It was early evening, and the marketplace was still bustling. She clenched the parchment in her hand, her pulse racing. What if this was a mistake? What if he laughed at her? Taking a deep breath, she pushed the wooden door open. Inside, fabrics of all colors and textures lined the walls. Mannequins wore gowns with intricate beadwork and embroidery. It was a world she had never seen before. Master Obi looked up from his desk. A smile spread across his face. You came. Nala swallowed hard and nodded. Show me, he said, motioning toward the table. Show me what you can do. Nala hesitated, her fingers trembling over the fabric as she sat in Master Obi's shop. The soft hum of sewing machines and the quiet chatter of apprentices filled the air. She had never seen so much fabric in her life. Bright silks, rich velvets, and intricate beadwork. It felt like stepping into another world. Master Obi handed her a needle and thread. Let's see what you can do. Nala's heart pounded. What if she failed? What if she embarrassed herself? She took a deep breath and picked up a plain piece of cloth. With steady hands, she began to sew. She folded, stitched, and created patterns, her fingers moving with practiced ease. Time disappeared as she worked, her mind lost in the rhythm of the needle weaving through the fabric. When she finally looked up, Master Obi was watching her intently. "This," he said, holding up her work, "is impressive." A spark of hope ignited in Nala's chest. But before she could celebrate, a sharp voice cut through the air. "I don't see what's so special about her," a woman said. She was tall, with piercing eyes and arms crossed tightly over her chest. "She's just a girl off the streets." Master Obi turned to her. "She has talent, Amara." The woman scoffed. "Talent means nothing without discipline." She looked Nala up and down. "If she's staying, she'll have to prove herself." Nala's stomach twisted. She had already done so much. Was it still not enough? Master Obi nodded. "Fair enough. Nala, you'll have 2 weeks to create something remarkable. If you fail, you leave." Nala's hands clenched at her sides. She wouldn't fail. She couldn't. This was her only chance. The days passed quickly. Nala spent every waking moment in Master Obi's shop, studying the way fabrics were cut, folded, and sewn together. She barely spoke, afraid that one wrong move would make them send her away. Amara, the sharp-tongued woman who had doubted her, kept a close eye on her. Every time Nala made a stitch, she would smirk and shake her head. "Too slow," she would mutter. "Too messy." Master Obi, on the other hand, observed in silence. He never scolded Nala, but he also never praised her. The pressure weighed heavily on her shoulders. One evening, as she stayed behind to practice, Amara approached her. "You're wasting your time," she said, arms crossed. "People like you don't belong here." Nala's fingers tightened around the fabric. She refused to let Amara see her doubt. "I will prove myself," she said quietly. Amara raised an eyebrow. "We'll see," she said, before walking away. Nala exhaled and turned back to her work. She had 1 week left. Failure was not an option. The morning of the final test arrived too soon. The apprentices gathered around as Master Obi stood in the center of the workshop. "Each of you must create something that speaks to who you are," he announced. "You have 1 day." Nala's heart pounded. The others had years of experience. She had nothing but her instinct and the memories of her grandmother's teachings. She stared at the fabric before her. Her hands shook, but then she remembered the tattered dress she had once repaired. She had taken something broken and made it beautiful. She could do it again. She closed her eyes for a moment and thought of her grandmother, seated by the window, her fingers moving deftly with a needle and thread. "Every stitch tells a story, Nala," her grandmother had once said. "Sew not just with your hands, but with your heart." Nala took a deep breath and picked up the scissors. She let the fabric guide her, each cut precise, each stitch deliberate. The room faded around her as she worked. She didn't think, she simply created. By nightfall, her dress was complete. It was simple but elegant, with hand-stitched details that told a story. The patterns woven into the fabric reflected the lessons of her past, the struggles she had endured, the hope that had kept her going, and the transformation she was undergoing. As she stepped back, exhaustion washing over her, she saw Master Obi watching. He nodded slowly. Tomorrow, she would find out if it was enough. The morning light streamed into the workshop. casting a golden glow on the neatly arranged garments. The apprentices stood in a line, their designs displayed before them. Some were extravagant, adorned with beadwork and flowing embroidery. Others were simple, yet elegant. Nala's creation stood among them, its beauty lying in its intricate details rather than its grandeur. Master Obi walked slowly, examining each piece with the sharp eyes of a seasoned tailor. His fingers traced the stitches, testing the strength of the seams. When he reached Nala's dress, he paused. The entire room held its breath. "This tells a story," he murmured, running his hand over the fabric. "Who inspired this?" Nala swallowed hard. "My life," she said softly. "I took something broken and made it into something beautiful." Master Obi met her gaze, and for a moment she saw something flicker in his eyes. Understanding, approval. But before he could speak, Amara scoffed. "It's basic," she said. "She has no real training, no technique." Master Obi turned to her, and yet it speaks louder than the rest. He straightened. "Nala, you have passed the test." A wave of relief crashed over her. She had done it. But before she could celebrate, Master Obi's voice turned serious. "This is only the beginning," he said. "Talent brought you here, but hard work will keep you here." Nala nodded. She was ready. With her place in the workshop secured, Nala found herself facing a new challenge. While some of the apprentices welcomed her, others, like Amara, were not so kind. "She got lucky," Amara whispered one afternoon as Nala worked on a new piece. "Master Obi is wasting his time on her." Nala ignored the comment, focusing on her stitches. She had survived worse. This was nothing. But Amara wasn't done. She walked over and placed a roll of expensive silk on the table beside Nala. "Let's see if you can work with real fabric instead of scraps." Nala hesitated. Silk was delicate, demanding precision. One wrong cut, and the fabric would be ruined. Amara smirked. "What's wrong? Afraid?" Nala straightened her back. "No," she said, picking up the scissors. She wasn't afraid. Not anymore. The next morning, tension hung thick in the air as the apprentices lined up beside their creations. Nala could feel her pulse in her fingertips as Master Obi walked through the room, examining each garment with his sharp, knowing eyes. When he reached Nala's dress, he didn't speak right away. He ran his fingers over the stitches, tracing the hand-sewn patterns. The room was silent. Finally, he exhaled. "This is remarkable." Nala's breath caught. Amara crossed her arms. "It's too simple," she muttered. "Anyone could make that." Master Obi turned to her, and yet no one did. He faced Nala again. "You have a gift, Nala. This is the work of someone who understands fabric, not just with their hands, but with their soul." A wave of relief crashed over her. She had passed. But then Master Obi's expression turned serious. "From today, your training will be different. You will not be treated as an apprentice anymore." Nala's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" He smiled. "You will train as a designer." Gasps echoed in the room. A designer? Her? If she had never dared to dream that far. Training as a designer was harder than anything Nala had faced before. She was no longer just fixing torn dresses. She was creating from nothing. Days turned into weeks, and she spent every moment sketching, cutting, and sewing. Master Obi pushed her harder than ever, demanding precision, creativity, and patience. Amara, though still bitter, watched her closely. One afternoon, she leaned against the work table as Nala struggled with a stubborn piece of fabric. "You're improving," she admitted begrudgingly. Nala glanced up, surprised. "Thank you." Amara shrugged. Don't thank me yet. The real test is still coming. And she was right. A challenge was looming, one that could change everything for Nala. Weeks turned into months, and Nala's skills grew sharper with every design she created. The other apprentices, even Amara, could no longer deny her talent. She worked tirelessly, her hands becoming faster, her stitches finer. Master Obi watched her closely, pushing her further with each challenge. One afternoon, as she finished a piece of embroidery, Master Obi entered the workshop holding a letter sealed with a golden emblem. The apprentices whispered amongst themselves. It was from the Royal House of Fashion, the most prestigious fashion event in the region. Nala, Master Obi called. She looked up, startled. He handed her the letter. You have been invited to present your work at the Grand Showcase. Gasps echoed in the room. The Grand Showcase was where the best designers displayed their creations before nobles, merchants, and royalty, winning recognition that could change her life forever. Nala's fingers trembled as she opened the letter. I don't know what to say. Master Obi smiled. Say nothing, just prepare. But as excitement bubbled in her chest, a shadow loomed over her. Not everyone wanted to see her succeed. As the grand showcase neared, Nala worked harder than ever. She designed a dress unlike anything she had ever made, an intricate fusion of her grandmother's traditional stitches and the modern techniques she had learned. It was bold, delicate, and powerful, just like a story. The night before the event, Nala carefully laid her dress on the mannequin, smoothing out the fabric. She stepped back, feeling pride swell in her chest. But as dawn broke, disaster struck. When Nala arrived at the workshop, her heart stopped. Her dress lay on the floor, torn beyond repair. The delicate embroidery was shredded, the fabric slashed. A cold dread seeped into her bones. Someone had done this on purpose. The other apprentices gathered around, murmuring in shock. Master Obi stepped forward, his face dark with anger. Who did this? Silence. No one spoke, but Nala could feel the weight of every gaze. Then Amara stepped forward, eyes downcast. It was me, she admitted. I couldn't stand watching her surpass me. Murmurs rippled through the room. Some gasped, others shook their heads. Master Obi's expression was unreadable. You were once one of my best apprentices, Amara, he said slowly, but jealousy has no place in this workshop. You are dismissed. Amara's head snapped up. Please, Master Obi, you let your envy turn into cruelty, he cut in. You destroyed something that was not yours. Leave. Tears welled in Amara's eyes, but she said nothing. With her head bowed in shame, she gathered her things and walked out. Nala watched her go, a mix of emotions swirling inside her. But there was no time to dwell. She had a competition to win. Master Obi placed a hand on her shoulder. The showcase is in a few hours. What will you do? Nala took a deep breath. She knew what she had to do. I'll start over. Time was against her. With only hours before the showcase, Nala worked at lightning speed. She didn't have the luxury of new fabric, so she turned to the scraps, remnants of previous projects, pieces of torn cloth. It reminded her of the dress she had once repaired for the festival. She stitched with purpose, weaving a story into every fold. Her hands moved with the memory of her grandmother's teachings. Every thread carried a lesson of resilience, of transformation, of strength. As the last stitch was sewn, Nala stepped back. The dress wasn't what she had originally planned. It was something greater. It was raw. It was powerful. It was a symbol of everything she had endured. She arrived at the grand showcase just in time. Nobles and traders filled the grand hall, their eyes scanning the designs before them. When it was Nala's turn, she stepped forward, her heart hammering in her chest. Gasps filled the room as her dress was revealed. The judges whispered among themselves. This was not just fashion, it was a story woven in fabric. Then the head judge stood and spoke. This, he declared, is the work of a true artist. The crowd erupted in applause. Tears welled in Nala's eyes. She had done it. She had turned her tattered past into something beautiful. Master Obi met her gaze and nodded. Amara, standing outside the hall, watched from a distance, regret evident in her eyes. But Nala had no room for bitterness, only growth. Moments later, the head judge stepped forward with a golden plaque. For your outstanding creativity and resilience, we award you the Grand Designer's Prize, he announced. Additionally, you have been granted a scholarship to study fashion design in the city. Nala's breath hitched. A scholarship. This was more than she had ever dreamed. She had fought through hardships, through rejection, through sabotage, and now she stood victorious. As she held the award in her trembling hands, she looked up at the ceiling, whispering a silent thank you to her grandmother. She had done it, not just for herself, but for the little girl who had once sat by the window, watching stitches turn scraps into something new. She had become more than just the girl in tattered clothes. She was a designer. She was Nala. Moral of the story: no matter how broken the past may seem, it can be transformed into something extraordinary. Resilience, hard work, and belief in oneself can turn even the tattered pieces of life into a masterpiece. True success is not about outshining others. It is about overcoming the struggles within ourselves. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales. The end.